TTARTISAN just came out with this lens, the 56mm f1.8. Now, will it be able to rival the quality of Fujifilm's 56 f1.2 for almost quarter of the price? Now, I will get to the price of this lens later on in this video. For the price that you're paying for this lens, you're getting a really nice metal build, even a nice metal focus ring that is really easy to rotate. And the one thing that I really like about this lens specifically is the weight. This lens is not a heavy lens. It's actually a pretty lightweight lens, and I put the weight right here. This lens is something that I can carry daily and pair it with my X-T4 as a daily driver for daily photos, walking, going on the street, taking some nice street photos. Just a nice daily driver that is not heavy and will not break your back or be very annoying on your shoulders if you have a strap on. And one thing that I can really praise TTARTISAN for is having a USB-C port in the rear cap of the lens, meaning you can just put a USB-C cable and update the firmware or the software on the lens itself in case there's any updates. And definitely using USB-C is a very nice touch because nowadays everyone just uses USB-C, so you don't have to worry about finding a micro USB cable. But the one thing that I really do dislike about this lens is the fact that it does not have an aperture ring. So to switch up your aperture, you will have to hit the command dials and switch to the aperture mode, and then you can use the dial to change your aperture. Personally, I found that pretty annoying and sometimes time wasting, just because I'm very used to Fujifilm's system where you can just turn the aperture ring to set the aperture to whatever you want. It's a bit nitpicky, but if you are a Fujifilm user, we are used to aperture rings. Now, if you are shooting with a film simulation and have most of your settings in automatic, then that should not be an issue and you will find yourself getting shots quickly. But if you do want to switch up your aperture, it took me a bit getting used to hit the command dial and then changing the aperture manually. Now, the autofocus has been hit or miss. Most of the times, the autofocus basically is pretty good. The subject tracking is great. The eye detection has been really good if there's a lot of light. And this lens focuses pretty quick for a lens of this price. But I still don't see it on par with Fuji's XF lenses, and that is to be expected. But for the price, this lens has pretty good autofocus. Some of the issues that I did face though is if you are focusing on something nearby and then you lift up your camera to focus on something far away, it does a bit of focus hunting and sometimes it does struggle to focus properly. But note that I did do most of these tests on my Fujifilm X-T4, and the X-T4 obviously has the old X processor 4 and doesn't have the latest and best when it comes to AI autofocusing. But from what I did test on the X-T4, I was pretty satisfied. Hit or miss, yes, but nothing too crazy that made me very upset or mad. Now let's talk about the image quality. The image quality has been pretty good. I've been pretty satisfied with the results that I've gotten so far. I wouldn't say you can take this on a professional shoot unless you are very confident in your focusing abilities and you have a pretty good lighting setup where the camera or the lens more specifically will not struggle with autofocus. Now if you look at these photos, it's definitely not as sharp as Fujifilm's XF lenses, and sometimes the images kind of feel flat. You can tell that the color kind of does not pop as much when you're using XF lenses. But for the price of this lens, you can see that the image quality is pretty good for a daily driver. I found no issues, to be honest, with these photos. I personally feel like these photos are pretty good. The quality is something I'm satisfied with. If it's just photos that I'm taking daily on the street or just shooting some portraits for fun with friends, I wouldn't see an issue with this lens. But one of the main benefits of this lens is basically its aperture. Shooting at f1.8, and obviously shooting at f1.8 means better low light performance, so you can get some really nice photos at nighttime. But that also means the focus point where you're focusing is pretty sharp in my own opinion, and the fall off and the depth of field that you get is pretty nice and it's very pleasing to the eye. I feel like the fall off is one of the main strengths of this lens. You can see like the depth of field is very nice, very pleasing to look at. The bokeh's pretty nice, and I personally feel very happy with these photos and the way they look. So yeah, f1.8, not a bad deal. Oh, and this lens is not weather sealed, so make sure to not take it with you when it's a crazy type of weather outside, whether it's raining or snowing. I wouldn't risk it and take this lens out. I don't think it can handle that kind of weather. Okay, so I talked about the price of this lens. This lens costs 229 Canadian dollars, which is a really good price for a 56mm f1.8, and that will definitely not break your bank. If you are a person who's looking to pick up a lens to take on the daily that doesn't weigh too much and does produce pretty good image quality, not as sharp as Fuji's XF lenses, and a bit softer when it comes to the colors, this is a really good lens for you to pick up. You can put this in your bag at all times probably. You can pair it with your X-T4 or X-T5, and you can take some nice daily photos on your daily walks, or some nice memory photos, or even sometimes some nice portraits. The autofocus is not bad, it's pretty good. It does struggle a tiny bit, but it's not something that would be the end of the world. You can pretty much get around it pretty easily if you have some good lighting and you know what you're doing with your camera. But if you're a person who's looking to get the sharpest, the best image quality, the best colors, then you would probably opt for the XF lenses by Fujifilm, or a third-party lens by Viltrox or Tamron. But for 229 Canadian dollars, this is a pretty good everyday pickup if you're a person who's just looking to get some nice photos on the daily, and a person who just wants a 56mm f1.8 that can shoot in low light and that is not too heavy. And if not having an aperture ring doesn't really bother you much, then yeah, I would say this is a good pickup. It's nice to have in your bag, and it's a nice lens to add to your kit for sure. But if not having an aperture ring really does bother you, then I would look at other alternatives, maybe by Viltrox, Tamron, or maybe Fuji's own 56 1.2. But that is it for this lens, the TTARTISAN 56mm f1.8. Not much to talk about this lens, to be honest. It's a pretty good lens that came out recently, and I just felt that I think it's worth a shot to try cheaper kind of lenses, because most times everyone is always reviewing the most expensive and the best and highest quality lenses. But there's a reason these companies come out with cheaper lenses, and that is because there is a demand and there is a market. There's a bunch of people who are looking for alternatives to those very expensive lenses that they cannot afford, and they want to know how good these lenses are. Definitely not an A+ lens. I would give this a C+, B-. It is a cheaper lens that it would not hurt to try it out. 229 Canadian dollars. Get it off Amazon. If you don't like it, you can return it. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you like it, please drop a like. If you want to subscribe, feel free. More videos coming soon, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.